Hey YouTube, Audio Damage released Continua, which is a new synth. Now, I know what you're saying. Oh, how many synths do we need on iOS? What's this one possibly doing that's different? And it actually answers that question extremely well. It is like a wavetable synth in that it lets you do all kinds of weird warping and stuff like that. But instead of using static wavetables, it's got real synthesis all the way down. So you get to change all of the oscillators that are creating the waves that you're warping and stuff like that. And it is a lot of fun. Like, it is amazingly powerful. And most of the stuff that you're seeing right here on the screen is like the meat of it. Like, there's an extra page here for the effects, but you really get to control the whole thing very intelligently from this one screen. So there's a lot of here I want to show off. But before we get into the actual sound design, I want to show off the effects, because Audio Damage is known for the effects. Let me take this adsr here, and we're just going to max out the sustain. We're going to max out these filters and clear out the cutoff and get rid of the modulation on this. We're using the default, so if you're playing along at home, just load up the default preset and you can do the same. So now we got just a very standard unaffected super saw here, where we've got a minor detune on the second and third oscillators. So now over here we got the effects, and there's this chorus here, which is fun, but we're not going to use. We got this delay here, which we are going to use, but we're mainly going to be abusing it. So it's good for that kind of separation by delay, but I want to use the separation less dramatically. I just want to really add widening to this. So I've got the delays really small, but they are slightly offset from one another, so that's creating some illusion of separation. And there's also this width here to really spread that out. And you can play with the feedback and get some pretty crazy results. The super saw particularly benefits from that. But I'm actually going to go with a more modest feedback on this. The color knob on both the delay and reverb are really good for like figuring out, okay, do I want this to be a bright sound? So it's easier if I use my finger on this. Or a darker sound. I'm looking for something around here. Like, just listening to it, figuring out where I want it to be. And then we've got the reverb, which, like, without me changing anything, sounds amazing. Like, a lot of reverbs can be a little overboard. Like, and I'm sure if we max out the size and decay here, we can get this to be crazy. But I'm actually looking for a much more modest sort of reverb here, because we're going to be making a huge sound, and we don't want this to be too crazy. Actually bring down the decay a bit. All right. And we're going to mix this down just a bit. And once again, I want to tune this color. That's it for the effects. We can get into the actual sound design now. I feel like it's really good to get these effects before you get into playing with any of the oscillators, though, because that it's bringing so much life into the sound that I want to have that in this video here. So the first thing that we should look at here is the first oscillator, which we can control with this outer ring. And by changing this, we change the shape of the wave. So we've got sine over here on the left, and then we go into a square, and finally a saw. And we can change this in a lot of different ways. The kind of more interesting way to do this is to take like a second adsr and tell it to push that outer ring by whatever this is doing. So let's say that it pushes it up and then it decays for 3/4 of a second. Actually, really like how that sounded might be playing some more with the curve here. And you might not be hearing that because it's such a short delay. So let me drag this out just for demonstration purposes. So we're doing that, but we're doing it a little faster by taking this to, let's say like 1.5 seconds. And we can further screw around with this using a warp. Hold on, let me see if I can get it to visualize this. Okay, I'll just leave it right now where we're at the square. And this is a lot of fun because it can act like a pulse width on the square, but like on, if we put this in the sine here, it really just mangles the hell out of that sine. So I really like playing with that, and I intend to do that. So let me get this back to where I want it to stop. So remember, when it comes down at the bottom of this, it's going to stop at whatever this is at. And let's put a LFO to control this warp here. And we don't need a lot. Just a little bit here is going to do a lot for us. Let's hear how that sounds right now. And that LFO is going a little too slow. See how that's, it's not like a in-your-face kind of effect, but it is adding motion to the sound. And we can do a lot of weird shit to the waves of the LFO too. And we can once again warp it, and there's skew, and like you can do lots of weird LFO shapes. Like let's give this one a shot. You can see it wiggle just a little bit. I'll increase this effect just a little bit more so it's a little bit more pronounced. I'll leave that there for now. We can also play with the phase if we wanted to like change where it started in that cycle. So like now it's kind of more in the middle, and over here it'll be a kind of a ramp down. Just for shits and giggles, let's see what happens when I max out the frequency here. You could do something like sync it to a specific tempo and then say add some sort of melodic thing to this. So like, I don't know, on every 8th note or 16th here. I guess that's still quite fast. Let me see. Like, let's try a quarter note. That actually sounds really good. That it's more rhythmic in its twitching. And if we move this warp up on the knob, we'll see a greater result, but we can change this now. I'll stop screwing around with that. Let's move on to what has become my favorite part of this, the FM section. So usually, like FM, classic FM, was just taking sine waves and modulating them with other sine waves. But here we can modulate whatever crazy thing this is with whatever crazy thing we come up with over here, and maybe some of that over there. The options here are tremendous. So let me try to set this up in kind of a gentle way to introduce the concept. So I'm getting rid of any change in the note that both oscillators are creating. And now I'm going to feed just a plain saw into our square-ish wave. Oh yeah, let me turn off these first two. Just by telling them not to go into any filters, they're now going to be silenced. So that's kind of a gentle, kind of stringy thing that we got going on there. Take this down an octave here. So, like, I didn't change this one at all. I just fed it into this, and we've got this cool, like, really cool sounding. I love that. But FM lets you do even weirder shit. So the way that you make FM start to sound weird is by changing the notes that each oscillator are playing at. So by dropping this by 6 notes here, it's going to be a much lower note tone that we get out of the first oscillator. And if you play with the fine tuning here, it's going to get even weirder. I don't want it to be too weird though, so I'm going to get rid of that and try transposing this down a full octave. And you can change how much this is affecting this with the level dump here. So at just 0.05, it's giving us a really low groan thing. It's not too weird. But we got all these, we got so many different things we can modulate and so many different ways of modulating things. So let's modulate some more stuff. Let's try changing the warp on this. Temporarily, I'm going to get rid of the LFO here because that's adding a lot of extra stuff. I want to mainly focus on what the FM is doing. And this is why I set the first adsr to be a full sustain, so we have time to actually play with this. If we had a more traditional sort of like 80 here and attack here, we'd have to wait through it to cycle, and then we'd be at a less of a level. So when we're doing this, we're not necessarily hearing all of what's going on. So I really like setting this just maxed out, kind of a flat gate. Now we can find exactly what we want this to sound like. I really like that. That's giving a rich hum to this. Let's try increasing the second oscillator just a little bit here. All right, let's screw around with this even more here. Let's take our LFO that was doing that weird thing and try sending this at this, except we're going to send it down Actually, still, oh, it might go both ways, huh? I guess it's moving too fast. Let's try lowering that rate. So that was actually an accident on my part. I put too much modulation on this, and it's going way further than I intended to, but this is a happy accident because I like how that sounds when it gets over into the sine. It gets smooth. It gets mean, smooth, mean, smooth, mean. Oh, I love it when it gets mean just a little bit. All right, let's stop screwing around with that for right now. I want to also show you the filters here. So each filter can be treated individually and discretely. So there's series, if you want to run the first filter and the second, or you can do parallel, and then you can do you treat them entirely differently. So you can say, like, let's pan this to the left here to add even more to our stereo image, and let's pan this to the right. And each filter can be a low pass, a band pass, a high pass. This, I forget what BS stands for. It's band reject, and then over here is another, it goes back into low pass. So let's take this here, and we're going to do kind of a traditional thing here on this first one, where it's just going to be like a 4-pole low pass with just a little bit of resonance. And we're going to do this, yeah, let's try it here. We're going to use the second adsr as the modulator of this. We wanted to push it up a bunch. Let's try that. I'm going to actually turn off this so you can hear what we're doing just with that. So it's in the left channel here. If we put this into series and we do this weird panning that we're doing right now, since the second filter is the thing at the end of the series, it's going to push everything to the right a little. So we don't want that. But let's... All right, back into parallel. Just kind of fine-tuning this. I actually really like how that ended up, so I'm not even going to change anything there. Let's bring in now the second one, and for this, instead of using a modulator on the frequency, let's use a modulator here on the morph and make it change shape as it's playing through. So I'm going to reduce the frequency just so it has something to move around on, like this. In fact, I'm going to bring it down to around 900 or so. Like, we wanted to do something like that, where it's... So basically we're doing a high to low on the first one, and then a low to high on the second. So we're going to use the same modulation, so they're going to move together. But on this, instead, we're going to... do we want to push it down or push it up? I guess we want to push it. All right, yeah, we're going to push it up and have it kind of rest there, I think. Let's give that a shot. Maybe that much. Maybe we want to play with this frequency at the same time. But we're going to push this down so it'll rest like 900 or so. That's not animating. Did I do it right? It really does not look like my modulation. Oh, I put the wrong envelope in here. There's nothing going on in that one. Okay. While I was screwing around with that, though, I pushed the morph up from high pass into the band reject, and I got some cool results. So let's hear how this sounds with the filter moving around. So, like I said, I want to start off low and stop high, whereas the other one's going high and stopping low. I think I want to push this up further, but not too far, because I don't want it to go into the band, the low pass. I want it to be just really deep in the high. That's going too far. All right, let's hear them together. God damn, that sounds really good. I am really happy with how this is sounding. I mean, damn. Let's try adding that LFO back on to the warp here. And once again, we just need a little bit of that. Just a little itty bitty. There we go. You can hear how that's adding just a very little bit of motion to that. After we finish with our filter sweeps, now it's going through a gentle little roll. And because we lowered the speed of this LFO, it's even gentler now. So I really like the way that this is sounding. We've got 4 more LFOs. We could assign a specific one just for this if we wanted to, but I don't want to spend too much time on one thing, because I haven't even showed you that while we've been screwing around with this one, filter, or oscillator 2 over here has been doing its own thing, right? Like, let's bring that in. So let's hear what that sounds like if we now mix that into everything. Yeah, it's a little high. Let's bring down the level of that. Oh, God. I feel like the right channel is just a little too heavy. And for this last one, let's see what we can do with it. So once again, just at a basic saw here, gonna get rid of this detuning. Oh, the drive here affects all of the oscillators. So like, we're just listening to the first oscillator here. Right, that's what it sounds like. Let's add a dramatic hard clip just so you can really hear the difference. Okay, so even though it's underneath oscillator 3, it's affecting all of them. So you got to watch that. It's basically taking everything that's going before the filter or after the filter. All right, so let's, now that we got just a little bit more grit going on, let's hear this simple saw. And I haven't even played with these envelopes, so let me do that right now. So this lets you change, like, we'll call this an attack, and then we got like a decay here, sure, but then we got another attack. Like, you get to do all kinds of different things with this. So let's, like, this is just me randomly putting things in places and see what happens here. Let's put this one to about right. I'm trying to decide if I want it to start off smooth or, yeah, let's just put it in the center here, and we'll pump it up with FEG1. And before this is going to do anything, you need to make sure you give it some level. So although we specify the amount that we want to modulate here, we need to set a level here. So right now, it's going through this cycle really, really fast, but we can actually drag it out. So you see time shows up down here when I touch one of these breakpoints. So if I drag this out, let's say that I want this to go over 2 seconds. It lets me. Like, I can just keep dragging all these out. So let's say this goes for another 2 seconds. And maybe it's kind of a gentler curve. But then it kind of freaks out and goes up here and like under a second, and then has a release. Really like the way that was sounding. We can add another breakpoint here and another one here, and kind of, I noticed there was like a halfway point on this that I really liked. I'm actually going to reduce these down to a second each. Maybe bring that down to half. This is the part I want to be tweaking with, so I'm going to drag this out to 10 seconds just so I have some time to work with it. All right, so the idea here is that I'm trying to make something that's going to go well with everything else that we've got. I'll have that drag out for 2 seconds, and then like a second slope, and then we'll send it backwards and forwards, or like this. So I need this leg now to last for the same duration as this. So this is set to a little under a second, and this is set to a little under a second. Add just a little bit of curve there. Now, I'm not going to do it, but if you want to, you could probably get some crazy dubstep out of this. I'm not the guy to show that off, so I'm not going to do that. Let's hear what this is sounding like, though, with everything else we've got going on. Like, here, I'll just first bring in the first oscillator. Bring the volume of that one down. My God, this is so epic. And, like, I'm pressing one button. Okay, that's one note, and right now we're only listening to 2 different oscillators. Let's bring in the third here. I noticed the volume of that's gotten really low. Let me actually tweak this against the first because the second's a little crazy. And now let's listen to all 3. so much going on in here. God damn, he gets so mean at the end, low end here at C1. And maybe a little too bright to be playing too high. So right now it's in poly mode. Set this to mono. We can unison it. And that seems grossly unnecessary to have it up to 6. I actually like the way that it was sounding before, but if you're going for that like laser bass sound, this is kind of on the right track. You'd have to be doing something a little different with the filters here. Give it just a little bit more of this. We haven't tried playing with the resonance on this one. Let's try that. I got an idea. This is just so much fun to play with. Like I keep coming up with new ideas as I'm doing this. And I know, like, the last video I did, somebody complained that I didn't do enough prep work on my video and I didn't come in with a game plan. I think it's more fun if I come into this and I'm just playing with it. Like if I had it scripted out, I think it'd be boring for everybody involved. So I want this to... All right, no, I actually want this to go up and then down, right? Okay. Let's go the other way with that. So what I just did there was add the resonance on our second, which you're here in the right channel. I'm trying to go for that laser bass sound. I like it too, so I'm just trying to maximize it while we're doing this unison thing here. I think I'm going to call it there before I go down any more rabbit holes. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you very much to all my Patreon patrons for making these videos possible. Take it easy, folks.